Let me ask you, because there's a lot of progressives now, Bernie supporters, who, frankly, as bad as Trump is, feel like we have to break the cycle of this lesser of two evil voting. They look at the two terms you used, Wall Street, military industrial complex, and see Joe Biden as, frankly, you know, a beloved figure to both. We know how bad Trump is, but Joe Biden has not offered progressives much of anything. So why do you think people need to hold their nose and vote for Biden when Biden pretty much will carry the ball forward for the military-industrial complex as well as Wall Street?
Yes, he will. And Trump is such a disaster globally. Now, Biden will be a disaster, but it will be a disaster in an effort to maintain the status quo. No, Biden will be a placeholder. He's not going to do anything great. He won't do any serious damage like Trump with our foreign trade and our foreign policy and our America First deal. The effort will be to integrate the United States back into a world position. Now, what they want is the United States as a world leader. Well, that's not going to happen. The restructuring, people have become wise about the excesses of the U.S. with its sanctioning, about the fact that it serves its interest first. So that's what's going to compel change. My fear is that after we get rid of the pandemic, of course, we'll always have the threat of future pandemics, and I think we'll handle that a lot better the next time around. But my fear is that at the end of this exercise, the middle class will be decimated, and a great deal expansion of the poor, and the elites will be as rich or richer than they are right now, which leaves them with the money to control society, and so that gives them an edge going into a solution period. I'm painting a very sad picture, but that doesn't mean it has to be realized. If we can turn around and the general public recognizes that the Democratic Party is not a proper alternative to Trumpism and the crazies, then that would open up possibilities. I hope the possibility is, for me, is lawmaking. Laws are the central core of civilization, the central core of governance. And so if we need to make a fundamental change, we need to make people lawmakers so that they, in a deliberative fashion now, in a very deliberative fashion, so that they can propose legislation and enact it into law. That, I view, as the solution. But the chances of this happening are somewhat remote right now. The people have to realize this simple concept that until they have the ability to make laws, there will be no fundamental change. Now, once they realize that concept, then change can be brought about. But until that concept is realized by the majority of the American voters, I'm very pessimistic about the outcome.
And one more follow-up on voting for Biden. You know, Lawrence O'Donnell, who now is obviously a multimillionaire anchor at MSNBC, about a decade ago, he actually said the only way that the Democratic Party will actually listen to the progressive wing is if you threaten not to vote for them.
If you want to pull the party, the major party that is closest to the way you're thinking, to what you're thinking, you must show them that you're capable of not voting for them. If you don't show them you're capable of not voting for them, they don't have to listen to you. I promise you that. I worked within the Democratic Party. I didn't listen or have to listen to anything on the left while I was working in the Democratic Party, because the left had nowhere to go.
If the Democratic Party always knows they could beat down progressives, they can take them for granted, but they'll always end up coming home to them in November because the Republicans are worse, they will never actually change. So most progressives are saying we're actually just going to repeat this cycle over and over if we vote for Biden. What do you say to that?
No, I think that'd be a mistake. We've gone to the extreme with Trump and the evangelical crazies who are waiting on the rapture. No, I think that would be a tragic mistake. It would give Trump another 4 years, and God, what damage could he do to civilization in that period? No, I think it's a question of voting for Biden because not that he'll bring about change, but that he'll open the possibility of change realizing itself, because people will be frustrated. They'll continue to be frustrated, but rather than being frustrated at Trump, they'll be frustrated at the Democrats and Biden, and of course at the Congress. The Congress is who's at fault in this regard, and you see the Republican Party in the Congress, which is for the last 30 years, much before Trump, have been trying to trash democracy and suppress the voting. You know, the public is led to the belief that because they can vote, they have liberty. Well, that's a joke. That's not what's happening. I'll give you an example. It's looking at China. China has brought about more freedom than any other group in the history of civilization. Now, there's both economic freedom and political freedom. And I maintain that economic freedom is superior to political freedom, because when you have economic freedom, you can educate your children, you can, live a good life. That you can't vote for your leaders, fine. Look at the United States. You can vote for your leaders, and look what you get. So that's not an argument in my mind. What we need is to be able to overcome the excesses that we're seeing right now in governance, and take that opportunity, which would be with Biden, because he won't be doing anything unusual. Might permit the military-industrial complex to start a war with China or Russia, but then again, I don't think that that's a guarantee. We need to get off this demonization of China and Russia. It's not fair, it's ridiculous, and doesn't make any sense. And it's inaccurate, totally inaccurate. As I pointed out, there's nobody that's done more for freedom and economic freedom than China, moving 600 million people in 30 years from poverty to middle class. That is bringing about a lot of freedom. We don't have anything in our history to compare with that.
We've actually done the reverse in the last 30, 40 years.
Well, what's worse than that, it's not just the last 30, 40 years. You go back to prior to the Civil War. What did we do when the liberal, progressive elements wanted to get the 8-hour day, wanted to get all kinds of safety measures in the workplace, to outlaw children being in the workplace? We have, from the Civil War to the Second World War, the use of government to oppress the people with military force. That's our history, and of course we choose not to recognize it. We choose to put this fantasy that we're the greatest, and we should lead the world because we are the greatest. We're only number one in munitions manufacturing. And if you really want to get a view as to who's the threat in the world today, it's who's manufacturing most weapons of destruction and murderous weapons at that. And that's, of course, the United States, far and ahead of China and far and ahead of Russia. So that's the overview, if you want to take a sobering look at it, that the American people should take a sobering look at it, and not go through this period of fantasy where we can go ahead and have a higher standard of living because we have the currency, the reserve currency of the world. That is certainly will end after this pandemic. Will it then realize itself into an improvement in human governance, that remains to be seen. My hope is that my book will catch fire and become viral, and that people will begin to discuss the fact that, well, can we make laws? Why should the Congress have this monopoly? So if we can get that discussion going, just get the discussion going, I think we'll be able to address this problem in the next 20, 30 years.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.